Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and beneficence. May that be the case for all beings, all beloved beings everywhere. So, welcome to the first of our sessions on the book Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda. There's a footnote that I will make unnecessary for Swayam to read by saying the text of this book is the content of a talk that Swami Ranganathananda gave in 1978 in Perth, Australia, to a group of men gathered at a Shivananda ashrama there. So if you think that the Swami had no books, no notes, he was simply speaking extempore, you will marvel at the remarkable retentiveness of the Swami's memory, among other things. So with that, again, welcome to the first of our readings and discussions of Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda. Please go ahead, Swami.
Namaste, everybody. Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda. Introduction. This evening, I shall speak to you on Divine Grace, which is such a great theme in Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam, and one school of Mahayana Buddhism. Divine grace is taught in all these religions as the ultimate of spiritual development and fulfillment.
Please note that the Swami talks about grace. To be in a state of grace is the ultimate in spiritual development and fulfillment. And he will define for us why this is so as he goes on. But I just didn't want to go by that statement, that this is the ultimate in spiritual development and fulfillment, this being in a state of divine grace. So I am, please go ahead.
Okay. In the New Testament, you find this statement, John 1:17. For the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. That is a beautiful idea. We want grace and love, and we want law also. Both these aspects are comprehended in the philosophy of Yoga of the Bhagavad-Gita. That great book expounds a complete philosophy of life, And the more we understand it, the more we get an insight into and grip on this complex phenomena called human life. We do not start our life with an awareness of God, but only with an awareness of the external world. Awareness of God comes later. The Bhagavad Gita seeks to convey to us a philosophy which will be relevant to all those who are handling the world of men and things and are being handled by it, and to those others who have developed an awareness of God and responded to His love, what are usually called the secular aspect and the spiritual aspect of life. Both
Let's
are.
just leave it there. Please note how strongly the Swami recommends the study of Bhagavad Gita and how he describes it as the comprehensive exposition, the comprehensive telling of the full scope of human life. And I didn't want to go by that idea either, that he is strongly recommending Bhagavad Gita as a subject for our study. Now, the next class that ends, we will take up the study of Bhagavad Gita again here in these Zoom meetings. So, just wanted to alert everyone to that. It'll be a while yet, but we will take it up. Okay, please, Swami.
Both are comprehended in the philosophy of the Gita, which means this philosophy is meant for all people. 3 stages of spiritual life.
That's section 2. The first section was the introduction. The second section is the stages of spiritual life.
3 stages of spiritual life. So, from this point of view, the 700 verses of the Gita can be broadly divided into 2 parts. First, we have an awareness of an external social environment of man around us, posing a challenge as to how to handle it for one's own growth and for its own welfare.
Would you read that again, please, dear?
3 stages of spiritual life. So, from this point of view, the 700 verses of the Gita can be broadly divided into 2 parts. First, we have an awareness of an external social environment of man around us, posing a challenge as to how to handle it for one's own growth and for its own welfare. Up to this point, it is all Purushakara, or self-reliance and self-effort, and a second reliance on fellow human beings and on cooperation with them. Next comes an awareness of something that transcends this sensory world and sensory man in a hazy consciousness of the spiritual dimensions of human life, an imitation of immortality,
Intimation.
an intimation of immortality, as poet Wordsworth puts it, has set in. But we are still far away from a true spiritual commitment and from a genuine dedication to the divine. We are beginners we seek to enter the spiritual life. We strive and struggle to capture God awareness. We want to feel stronger and stronger spiritually. Up to this point, it is still self reliance and self effort primarily, but gently getting suffused with faith in the divine.
Okay, let's pause there. He says the Gita can be divided into two parts. First, the environment in which we live, and then the spiritual environment to which we aspire. This is not a compartmentalization. It's a spectrum, as he says. We move along, and at the end, we are gently getting suffused with a faith in the divine as we move through the stages of beginning spiritual life. So, is there any concern or question or comment you want to make from your own experience about any of that? Okay, please go on. Smile.
From now on, life becomes a partnership between man and God. And spiritual progress registers the progress of God becoming the major partner in the human life process, and man feeling increasingly enriched and ennobled and spiritually strengthened thereby. Like a small banking business undertaking that feels financially strengthened when connected with the vast resources of a reserve bank, man experiences his limited life resources getting underwritten by an infinite spiritual resource within. At a critical stage of this spiritual growth, man experiences an accession of spiritual strength, which makes him take the next step, the momentous step, the last step, namely, complete self surrender to the divine and forsaking of all separate self effort on his part. The Vaishnava theology of South India describes the two stages of self effort, Purushakara, and divine grace or self surrender, or Kripa, or Sharanagati, as the baby monkey way and the kitten way, respectively. The baby monkey holds on to its mother depending on its own grip, while the kitten only meows while the mother cat moves about, lovingly gripping it between her teeth. These are, broadly speaking, the two stages of man's spiritual life in the four religions mentioned earlier, with an intermediate stage of a gentle blend of both. Nowhere is this subject so clearly expounded and lucidly placed before humanity in all its three stages and their interconnections as in the Gita.
Okay, let's just leave it there. This intimation of immortality. Swami Sridharananda puts it this way. We start off, as the Swami says here, with a sense of ourself. I am. And that's completely natural. That's the way it's intended to be by the creative force. We start off with this I am. Then something happens, this intimation of immortality, as Wordsworth put it. And so we get a sense that there's something greater than ourselves. It becomes then I am and thou art. This is the stage to which the Swami has brought us so far. I am and thou art. Swami Sridharananda goes on to say, and Ranganathananda will go on to explain, how after a time we understand thou art, therefore I am. And ultimately, we come to the stage where we understand it's only thou art. But that is far, far down the spiritual path. So I am, and then I am, oh, and I see, thou art. Intimations of this immortal, this timeless, changeless, infinite being. Intimations of that. Oh, thou art, I am, and thou art. Then, as we progress spiritually, we come to the sense that, oh, thou art, and therefore I am. Any questions about that? Any concerns that that raises? Or any comments from your own wisdom or experience about this process and how it is that we experience it? And Swayam, you are often a commenter or a questioner, so just because you're the reader doesn't disqualify you from participating in that way too.
Sure, Brother Shankara,
When you have something to say. Good. Anything from anyone? Okay.
I do have one thing to say, just like the example Swami uses about the difference between the baby monkey way and the kitten way. I think Sri Ramakrishna in Gospel mentions about the child and the parent. If the child holds the parent's hand, there is possibility that something will distract the child and it will let go. But if the child gives its hands for the parent to hold, the parent will never let it go.
Yes, and will never let the child fall. Yes, very well said. Sri Ramakrishna also mentions this monkey way and kitten way, and is a great advocate of the kitten way, as is the Swami, as this formulation, as he comments on it, as part of South Indian Vaishnavism, that the monkey way, the monkey may let go its hold and fall from the tree, and therefore be scooped up by the panther. But the kitten is never in any danger of this. The kitten relies entirely on its mother, and just says mew mew wherever she moves it. Purushakara and Kripa, or Saranagati. And but we all start with the Purushakara. It's unavoidable. We don't know the kitten way until we begin to experience, oh, thou art, and therefore I am. And so there's this surrender to the to the divine presence as the mother, or that which is carrying us from place to place and putting us wherever it cares to. Anything else from anyone?
I have a comment. Maybe I'm missing something here, but oh gosh, what was I going to say? I'm so distracted. Talking about, we start with I am, which is self-awareness, and then I am and thou art. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
But I was just thinking about, very young babies. They're somewhere else.
Oh, yes.
They're in that place that a lot of us are trying to get to.
They embody that.
They don't see the separation between themselves and the rest of creation.
Yes, they are in that kitten phase. It's only when we get to what is in child development called the terrible twos, and we learn to say no. Then we want to hold the parent's hand and not have the parent constantly hold our hand. It's only later that we come to understand the wisdom of that, as Swami was pointing out. So yeah, we start out, as you just said, Cindy, in this, there is no distinction between themselves and the mother. This is what child development people who study child development say. The child recognizes no distinction between itself and the mother. Which is why it's so tragic when people put the child in another room and let it cry itself to sleep.
There's a pediatrician by name, I think its last name is Brazelton, I forget the first name. He has described this, he studied newborn babies, various states of, I guess, crying and alertness and etc. One of the states he describes is the state of quiet alertness. And I have seen often, while examining babies, or they would be like crying, obviously most of the time when they are handled, but then sometimes we catch them in that where they're just laying so still with the eyes open with wonderment. I mean, they literally have this wonder in their eyes, and that's amazing to see.
Yes, the truly incredible writer Vladimir Nabokov apparently actually remembered this state of being in that, and I forget the name of the book in which he talks about it, but you will recognize it in the title if you go looking. He actually remembered being in his pram or bassinet on the porch of the house and being in that state of quiet alertness that you talk about. It's beautifully, beautifully described in his book. Anything else from anyone, dears? Okay.
This is section 3. Purushakara versus Kripa. So, at the beginning of our spiritual life, we strive to develop character under the guidance of social ethics. What Moses presented as law, what Vedanta speaks of as dharma, in the context of interaction with other human beings, whether in a tribal setting, in the wider national setting, or in the widest international context. This training helps us to develop ethical virtues and graces, to humanize us, and to grow and expand beyond our organic and ego limitations. This gives man...
Would you read that again? And notice how it ends too. what it is we grow beyond. Please read that again right from the beginning, dear.
Okay. Purushakara versus Kripa. So, at the beginning of our spiritual life, we strive to develop character under the guidance of social ethics. What Moses presented as law, what Vedanta speaks of as dharma, in the context of interaction with other human beings, whether in a tribal setting, in a wider national setting, or in the widest international context. This training helps us to develop ethical virtues and graces, to humanize us, and to grow and expand beyond our organic and ego limitations.
To grow and expand beyond our organic and ego limitations. This is spiritual life. To grow beyond the limitations of the 11 cosmic principles, the mind, the 5 organs of action, and the 5 organs of perception. When we expand beyond them, then we are entering into the realm of spiritual life, which is a spectrum, not a compartment. Okay, dear?
This gives man the experience of his or herself transcending itself, even at this stage of self effort. And unless we erect ourselves above ourselves, how poor a thing is man, sang Wordsworth. It is at this stage that our understanding becomes spiritually mature to recognize and respond to the pull of the transcendental, the touch of that dimension of reality that lies above the sensory level. This is the beginning of a more conscious striving in spiritual life, above the merely moral or ethical level. In the language of religion, it represents conscious turning to God and to its other spiritual equivalents. The gentle breeze of Kripa or divine grace becomes felt at this stage in the context of self-effort itself. Often we don't have that comprehension, don't want to reckon with it, and there is no harm in that attitude, says the Gita, and assures man, depend upon yourself. This self-reliance is good and salutary and necessary.
Salutary, by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with that word, it's not a very commonly used word in our language anymore. It means healthy. This self-reliance is good and salutary, healthy for us, and necessary. Okay?
The Gita also tells us why this self-reliance, this Purushakara, is necessary, why it is good and beneficial, and at what stage we shall be in a position to renounce it and depend entirely on divine grace, the Ishvara Kripa. This initial emphasis on self-effort finds powerful expression in the exhortation of Jesus, Matthew 7:7-8. Ask, and it shall be given. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh, receiveth, and he that seeketh, findeth, and to him that knocketh, it shall be opened.
Now, is there any question at all or concern at all about these representations that the Swami is making? Let's not move ahead. And if there's any If there's any doubt or concern in your mind about this transition from this very natural evolutionary transition from Purushakara, self-effort and self-reliance, which Krishna says in the Gita is absolutely necessary, healthy, and good, to this state of self-surrender or saranagata, taking refuge in Ishvara Kripa, the divine grace. Any concern at all, any thought at all that you'd like to bring up. Remember, this is a class. This is not a lecture. We're listening to a lecture. But in studying it, we're holding a class. So don't be at all shy in bringing forward any thought or concern or any comment from your own wisdom or experience about this. If you have had this, if you want to second, so to speak, what the Swami is saying, please do. It's not required that you speak, but it is good for the congregation as a whole if you do have something to say.
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
I have something to share. Ask
Please.
and it shall be given you. And that is very true. Those two sentences is very true. In my case, at least in my experience in life, you may not get exactly what you ask for, but that will be the one divine gives you. That would be the right one. Later on, you realize that was the right one. That's what I deserved. So that is my experience. And definitely we get it.
Thank you, Haima.
Thank you.
I have an example from a member of this congregation. He's still a member of our board. His name is Tom Couch. He was one of the earliest devotees of Swami Yogeshananda, who started this center. And he went to see him in this little apartment where the Swami was living. And the Swami said a few things to him. Tom Couch asked some questions. Those questions were not answered directly. The Swami said a number of things to him. And as Tom Couch was driving away to go home, he thought to himself, in the beginning a little resentfully, he didn't answer any of my questions. And then he thought to himself, but he told me everything I really wanted to know. Ask and ye shall receive. The asking was the going. And asking, and as Haima pointed out, you may not receive exactly what you think you're asking for. But Tom Couch told me this story himself and wouldn't mind at all me telling you. He's told it openly in other classes that we've held here. That he went, the Swami told him a number of things. Tom Couch asked him a number of questions. None of the questions that Tom had were answered directly. But as he was really deeply pondering it, he saw he didn't answer my questions, but he told me what I really wanted to know. So this is just a second to what Haima just said. If you ask, you will receive, and you will receive what you need, not what your somewhat uninformed or ignorant thoughts may form into questions. Any other comment or concern or comment from your own experience?
Brother?
Yes, dear.
Hi, this is Rochelle.
Yes.
In my background for the last 35 years, one of the things that would be brought up about that statement of Jesus's was ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be open to you, was especially pertinent to asking for simply more understanding, more enlightenment, more consciousness. And that is almost a magic formula for opening to those things. And that Jesus was really dealing with, maybe the loftier emotions there. But I do have to say that I totally agree with Haima that when you do ask and you believe it has been done, you do get what you need at the right time and at, the right.
Yes.
So in
And
any affairs of life.
Jesus amplified this by saying in another context, if you ask your Father for bread, will he give you a stone? If you ask for a fish, will he give you a serpent? No. You will receive, as the opening prayer for this class says, may the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. So if you ask your Father, you will be supported and nourished. Perhaps, as has been pointed out, not exactly as you had in mind, but it will happen. And this is such a critically important thing to bring up. Otherwise, the Swami would not have quoted those verses at such length. So, Haima, would you read those verses from Jesus again?
That's Swayam, right, Brother Shankara? You want Swayam?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay, I know you
I'm
want
so
Swayam.
used to asking you as a reader. Swayam, I'm sorry.
That used to be on Tuesday.
Okay.
Ask and you shall receive.
Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened.
Okay. Any further thought, comment, or question?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a quick comment and a question. The comment is, I was watching one of the YouTube videos that Ram Dass and Eckhart Tolle were, I guess, together on a forum. And in the description it said that Ram Dass was stroked by God. And I thought that was such a beautiful way to describe that he had a stroke.
Yes.
Stroked by God. That description just touched me.
And for those of you who don't know this story, there is a film that you can find. It's called Fierce Grace. Fierce Grace. And what the title points to is exactly what Swayam was just saying, that Ram Dass, this teacher, had a stroke, and it left him absolutely at a loss, because it showed him that he still had a great deal to learn and a great deal to develop. And so it was fierce, this lesson, but it was grace. And if you want to watch that film, Fierce Grace, you will be thrilled at what you see and hear. Thank you, Swayam, for bringing up Ram Dass. And I've heard a number of times about this encounter between Ram Dass and Eckhart Tolle. I'll have to watch it myself sometime. Anything else from you?
My question is, where he says that when we develop character under the guidance of social ethics, and then it leads to virtues, graces, and humanizes us, and that gives man experience of his or her self transcending itself. even at this stage of self-effort. I'm not quite able to grasp that as to how, when we develop a character, do
Well,
we...
as we improve ourselves, as Swami Yatishwarananda said to Swami Yogeshananda was his disciple, his chela. Yatishwarananda said, for every step forward spiritually, you must take 2 steps forward morally and ethically. For each step forward spiritually, you must take 2 steps forward morally and ethically. And this is what is pointed out and is in the workbook that Patanjali left for us, that we must improve ourselves through the restraints of the yamas and the observances of the niyamas. And when we do replace the lower with the higher, we transcend ourselves through self-effort, exactly as the Swami is talking. So we grow, and this is still very early stages of our spiritual growth, but we have left behind that pure self-centeredness of I am and begun to experience what is there in the observances, I am and thou art. And so this is, even in these early stages, where it's moral and ethical growth, but we're transcending ourselves. We're growing beyond what we were simply as I am to something greater. That's how it's understood from here, Swam. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's beautifully explained. Thank you.
Okay.
Section 4. Spirituality pervades all human life.
You just notice the title.
Spirituality pervades all human life.
As Swami Vivekananda points out, there cannot be 2 existences, only one. All of human life is pervaded by that which created human life, which is the spiritual. So spirituality pervades all human life. Yes. Okay, please go ahead, dear.
We ask, when shall we begin our spiritual life? The Gita and the Upanishads answer, when you are young, when your body is strong, when your mind is fresh and vigorous. But the answer of an otherworldly piety will be quite otherwise. It will tell you, begin to think of religion when you are old and jaded.
Yeah, that'll work.
Enjoy sensory pleasures to the full in your youth and manhood, and concern yourself with your otherworldly prospects when the body becomes unfit for them.
Okay, I want you to read this over again. And it really is humorous what he's saying. And I'd like to underline again for the women in our group here, that at the time he was speaking here, he was speaking to a group of men only. That's why he talks the way he does. He uses just the masculine pronoun and the masculine noun. So it's not that he's being in any way dismissive of the feminine. Ranganathananda was anything but he was speaking to men, so he spoke in that way. Could you read that again, please, from the title forward, dear?
Yes. Spirituality pervades all human life. We ask, when shall we begin our spiritual life? The Gita and the Upanishads answer, when you are young, when your body is strong, when your mind is fresh and vigorous. But the answer of an otherworldly piety will be quite different otherwise. It will tell you, begin to think of religion when you're old and jaded. Enjoy sensory pleasures to the full in your youth and manhood, and concern yourself with your otherworldly prospects when the body becomes unfit for them.
Yes, another word, another term for this is magical thinking. Your otherworldly piety is magical thinking. It doesn't mean that someone who comes to this when they're older is in a hopeless condition. It just means they're really coming from behind. They need a real powerful awakening. It happens. There are members of our congregation to whom it has happened. And it's a grand thing, but it is unusual. Most people who practice this, what the Swami refers to as otherworldly piety, will be simply hypocritical. Any other thoughts or comments or concerns from anyone?
So are we saying that but the Vedas are not considered graspable, or?
Oh no, not at all, dear. How did you read this? What did you read from this that made you think that?
Well, the subject object is somewhat, I guess you could say, fused in the idea of the term you used, magical.
Well, no, it's magical thinking if you adhere to this idea of this otherworldly piety, that it's not that the Vedas are magical or the Gita or the Upanishads are magical. This thinking that, oh, I don't need to attend to this now. I'll just deal with it when my body is otherwise unfit for sensory pleasure. That's the magical thinking that I was talking about. This otherworldly piety. The Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita are difficult to understand, which is why there is so much commentary on them, and particularly because in our modern world, the context in which they were spoken, most of them were spoken long before they were written down.
Right.
The context in which they were spoken had a very different worldview than our modern scientific, sometimes reductionist point of view. So that's why they can be sometimes difficult to understand, but not because they're ununderstandable, or it just takes effort and explanations like the one that the Swami is giving us this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Anything else from anyone?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear.
I used to feel quite, I would say, disappointed at myself because I came to Vedanta after I was 60. But looking back, I feel that every step, there was something that was bringing me along and led me to this. So even though this particular undertaking started late, I suppose that the grace did carry me to this.
Not only that, dear, but you're not unfit for worldly pleasures at this point. You could still be quite, if you were disposed to be, you could be still quite involved and going to the finest restaurants all the time, and engaging in social interactions, parties, the kinds of dinner and social parties where people are gossiping and not talking of anything spiritual. All of that would still be very much within your purview. You know, again, the Vedas and the Gita, the Upanishads and the Gita, they speak of an ideal, and it is a time of life called brahmacharya, the first 25 years, and then the early parts of the householder or grihastha stage. But we're fortunate if we take this up when we're in the brahmacharya and early phases. But as you say, there are other ways. You will see as we go on, Swami, and study this book, that you did exactly what the Swami said to do. You fulfilled your potential as a self-reliant human being. And then you became dissatisfied with what had been achieved. And that's when as you say, something pulled you forward. And Sri Ramakrishna says, things happen at exactly the right time. But the Swami was gently discouraging people. Remember, this was a lot of young men studying yoga who were in that audience, who were, a lot of people study yoga not for any spiritual purpose at all, but to have a beautiful, healthy body and to be able to enjoy the sensory life the better. And so he was gently, we need to take into account to some degree the audience to whom he was speaking.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, we have a few minutes. Please read on.
Okay. The philosophy of Vedanta bridges the gulf between action and contemplation, work and worship, the secular and the sacred. This was the philosophy that Swami Vivekananda preached in the East and West alike at the end of the last century. Highlighting its unifying vision, Sister Nivedita, Miss Margaret Noble, writes in introduction, Our Master and His Message, Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda. So it's the introduction part of that. She writes, the many and the one are the same reality, perceived by the mind at different times and in different attitudes. It is this which adds its crowning significance to our Master's life. For here he becomes the meeting point, not only of the East and West, but also of the past and future. If the many and the one be indeed the same reality, then it is not all modes of worship alone, but equally all modes of work, all modes of struggle, all modes of creation, which are paths of realization. No distinction henceforth between sacred and secular. To labor is to pray, to conquer is to renounce. Life is itself religion. To have and to hold is as stern a trust as to quit and to avoid. This is the realization which makes Vivekananda the great preacher of karma, detached action, not as divorced from, but as expressing jnana, self-knowledge, and bhakti, love of God. To him, the workshop, the study, the farmyard, and the field are as true and fit scenes for meeting of God with man as the cell of the monk or the door of the temple. To him, there is no difference between service of man and worship of God, between manliness and faith, between true righteousness and spirituality.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. It's 8:27. We'll start with her reading that again next week, weather willing. And Nivedita, of course, was perhaps Vivekananda's chief Western disciple. Nivedita means the offered one. He gave her that name when he gave her sannyas. And so she came to India and offered her life to the Indian people. But she was also the one who perhaps understood Vivekananda most of anyone. So what she's saying here is that is the core of what he's teaching. And I say he's teaching not in the past, but in the present, because that's how it's felt, that he is indeed still with us and still teaching. So that's where we'll begin next week. Any comment or question from anyone? All right, dears. This is, as we'll see as we reach the conclusion of this book, what Swami Ranganathananda is already showing us in various ways, without saying it in these words, is that to be fully human is to be fully divine. To fulfill that which is meant by our taking these garments of stardust spacesuits and all of the attendant seeming bondage and seeming distraction, that these are part of the creative act, that these are part of the great drama, the great play of the divine as many. So we will see that to fulfill this human being, this being human, is to be divine. Any other thought from your own experience or wisdom? Any concern or question from anyone? All right, dears. O dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, "Come to me, come to me," offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace and beneficence, peace and beneficence, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful, may we have peace of mind, may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until Saturday, when we'll study Swami Prabhavananda's workbook on Raja Yoga, called How to Know God. It's his translation of and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. That's what we're studying on Saturdays at noon. And then on Sunday, we'll discuss the topic, why is this dream so compelling? And we're already getting some inkling of that from what we're reading, what we were reading tonight. Any final thought or comment or question from anyone? All right, dears. Until next time, so good to be with you, so good to share this all with you, and really and truly may you all be well and in bright spirits. Good night.